Next up, so we keep the train moving here. We have William Merton with O'Neill Marketing up to deck. O'Neill Marketing provides all of our agents, you already know, with a service level that is absolutely unmatched in the industry. And from all of us here at AOBG, thank you for your for being our trusted partner. And we're so glad to have you with us today, William. Make sure your mic's on, bud. We're almost there for you. I'm sure everyone is ready to hear from you. So let's just step back. I'll hand the mic over to you, bud. William Merton, everyone.
Hey, good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. Let me just make sure, I guess, before I jump in, this is working. Everyone's able to hear me.
You are very good, sir. You're good to go.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thanks for the introduction. Again, really appreciate y'all coming out here this morning. Learn a little bit more. Get ready for open enrollment. We're looking forward to another great year, and we appreciate all of y'all's hard work, not only during the 3 months of open enrollment, but also throughout the year. So, again, we really appreciate you guys. At the end of the day, we couldn't be what we're doing without all y'all's hard work. So, really, today, just wanted to go over just some general prep stuff to make sure everybody has a good and successful open enrollment. And first and foremost, the thing that we always see every open enrollment is unfortunately enrollments in carriers that you're not appointed with. So our first highest level recommendation to everybody is make sure you know the carriers that you are appointed with. And the best way to find that out is going to be right in our O'Neill Marketing Agent portal. If you've not jumped in there and checked that out and familiarized yourself with it, I would highly recommend that you do so. There's a lot of good information in there, but most importantly is going to be your appointment information. So again, that's the link right there up top, agents.o'neillmarketing.net. The username there is going to be the email address you have on file with O'Neill Marketing. If you're not able to log in, give us a call. We'll certainly help you out. The highest thing here, though, is going to be checking your active appointments in the carrier appointments tab. Our contracting team runs appointment audits pretty much every single day so that we can have as close to real time appointment data into our portal so that you can know what carriers you're actively appointed with. And these are all coming from the carrier's information. So we're getting it right from the source. So pretty much the main thing that I want to make sure that everyone knows is if you are seeing an appointment in your portal, you should be all good. You're good to sell. If you're not seeing an appointment in there, double check it. Make sure that everything's looking good. You can give our contracting team a call. And then, of course, if you're missing the appointment and you don't even think that you've requested it, go ahead and just submit an appointment request in there. I've got a picture of it on the next slide I'll show you, but you can pretty much just click it, select your states, and go from there. And that's going to be the easiest way. Perfect. Thank you much. And you can see right here, this is mine. I don't have all the appointments that maybe I should, but you can go in and see that all the states in blue, states that I am appointed with. Yellow states are going to be pending. And in my case, I'm not appointed with Ambetter. I'd probably want to go ahead and get that appointment as soon as possible. Because just a reminder to everybody, I'm sure you already know this, but if you're writing appointments or if you're writing business under non-appointed carriers, that will result in no commissions. Not only that, but if you write it and then your appointment pops up a day later, 2 days later, that does not necessarily mean that the appointment was in place in time for that sale. It really does vary by carrier to carrier, but as a general rule of thumb, just assume that everything requires an appointment ahead of time. It doesn't matter if you're appointed before the effective date. You should make sure that you are appointed right at that time of submission. And then if you do have any questions about any of your pending appointments, anything contracting related, you are seeing something there that you're not really sure about, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Go ahead and shoot an email to contracting@o'neillmarketing.net. We can dig into it with you, figure out what's going on, and we'll be able to let you know some more information about what the status is on that appointment, or if it's pending, we'll see if we can get it moving along or talk with the carrier and just see how everything stands. Because again, unfortunately, every year we see it. People will accidentally sell business under carriers that they're not appointed with. So if you do nothing else, just remain vigilant about all of your appointments. Check your agent portal and make sure that you have it up. And just remember too, if you don't see it in the agent portal, best to assume that you are not appointed with the carrier. If you have reason to believe otherwise, maybe you've received a welcome letter from the carrier or you got an email kind of stating that you might be appointed, again, go ahead and just send that over to our contracting team. We will take a look at it and then we'll double check our downline reports from the carriers and we'll be able to verify that that is the case. Because again, just for all clarity, making sure that everything is located in one spot, just use our portal as your hub for making sure that you are contracted with all of those carriers. And then I'd have just a quick slide just to show some of our top carriers. You all, I'm sure, already know all of these. I'll touch on a few of some of the newer ones this year, but certainly the top row and some of the second row too, going to be our main carriers that I'm sure you guys are selling a ton of. And just I mentioned it a second ago, but just a reminder as well, check your portals as soon as possible. And if you're missing any appointments, please go ahead and request them right now. As a general rule of thumb, the closer and closer we get to November 1st, the longer it's going to take carriers to get your appointments. We've seen, even just within the last 2 to 3 weeks, a pretty significant increase in processing time for some of our major carriers. As always, it certainly varies carrier to carrier and sometimes case to case. But just as a general rule of thumb, if you're putting in an appointment request on, the 25th of October, I would not bet that that is going to be set up necessarily by November 1st. If it is, that is fantastic. And of course, we will do everything within our power to make sure that is the case. But just as a general rule of thumb, just keep that in mind. The closer we get to November 1st, and once we get into November, typically the longer it's going to take from appointment to being fully contracted. And as always, once you put in that request, just keep an eye on your portal. As soon as we get the word that you're contracted, you'll see that status on your portal change from in progress to updated. And again, when in doubt, just always check your portal. And just one last quick note, too, if you do have any transfers, just keep in mind that a lot of carriers have transfer blackouts. Ambetter, Oscar, Molina, UHC, CareSource, they have already closed for transfers. Aetna is going to be closing in just a few days. Typically is going to happen, around this time. A lot of the carriers will continue throughout open enrollment, but just keep that in mind, especially with some of those major carriers. And again, if it doesn't show up, just assume that you're not contracted. And that's also going to apply too if your appointment is under another FMO. If you're contracted, but it's not under O'Neill Marketing, that's also going to affect the flow of commissions. So just keep an eye on our portal and make sure that that's your go-to resource for checking all of your contracting related stuff. Just another quick just touch on the agent portal as well. A lot of people have asked for carrier resources, broker support, member support, FAQs. You can find a lot of that stuff in the carrier resources tab on our agent portal. Whenever possible, we got broker support emails, phone numbers, member support emails, phone numbers, a lot of carrier FAQs. We try to consolidate as much information as we can right there in that tab. So if you need to reach out to the carrier or anything like that, go ahead and check there if you're not sure. Good chance the information that you're looking for is going to be right there. And I also wanted to shout out to our ACA handbook. This has been something we've been doing for the last few years. Right around this time, we'll reach out to the carriers and we try to get all the information that they can give us about carrier expansions, carrier exits, new plans, discontinued plans, information about their member benefits, all of that good stuff that I know that you all need. The biggest things I like to mention about that too are going to be carrier exits and plan discontinuations. Because as Mike said, when it comes to renewals, you're going to want to make sure that your clients know exactly what's happening. And a lot of times it's great to know if a carrier is going to be leaving the state. So if you've got, for instance, a UHC plan in Pinellas, Florida, we know that UHC is leaving that county. So if you've got anyone on UHC there, it'll be a good person to go ahead and reach out to because you know for a fact the plan that they're in is not continuing on to the next year. So that's a really good resource and something that you can use while you're strategizing and making out buckets for your renewal process during November. So just keep that in mind. Check it out if you haven't already. It's in a lot of the email signatures for O'Neill Marketing, but it is also in our agent portal too. If you log in, it should be one of the links up there in the carousel right on the home page. So go ahead and check that out. It should be a pretty useful resource for y'all going into open enrollment. I'm good to go to the next slide. Thank you very much. The other thing that I really wanted to hit on for our agent portal too is some of the agency admin tools that we've created specifically for heads of agencies to make life a little bit easier for you. So one of the biggest things that I always want to point out that I think is very, very useful is we have appointment reports that you can pull for your downline agents. So if you're in your agent portal, if you have an admin status, which you can always see, it'll tell you right up in the top right corner, you can just jump into the agency management tab, go to your agency's dashboard, and then there will be a place where you can export a report of all the completed and confirmed appointments for your agents in the downline. And that'll just be a CSV file that you can open up in Excel or whatever spreadsheet tool you prefer. And you'll be able to see just in one spot for all the agents in your downline which carriers are they appointed with, what states are they appointed with for each carriers, and that's a way that you can have all that information just locked in one spot. And you can also double check to make sure that all your agents are fully appointed and are set up for success as we move into open enrollment. Again, that's only available for agency admins, but it's a good tool to use if you're trying to look at the appointments on aggregate. And then additionally, as well, from the agency management dashboard, you can also hop in and request appointments for your agents or back into their account. So again, from the agency management dashboard, you'll just click on the view icon next to the agent's name, and then you'll be able to jump in. You can request appointments on their behalf. You can also check the status of their in progress contracting and see if there's anything else required there. So if there's anything missing from that completed and confirmed appointments report, maybe jump into their account, see if it's still pending. And if it's not even listed as pending, that probably means that it hasn't even been requested yet. And so then if you need to, you can go ahead and shoot that off right then and there. And our contracting team will go ahead and get the ball rolling for you. And the other big thing that I always like to point out as well is just that you also have the ability to onboard your downline agents right from our portal as well. So that's going to, again, be in the agency management tab. You'll just, instead of going to the dashboard, go to the settings/invites. You can modify any settings if you need, but then most importantly, you can send out O'Neill onboarding directly to your downline agents so that they can go ahead and get started. And then once they fill out that form, submit it in, we'll get all their contracting, get everything working for them. And it's just a way so that you can quickly make sure that all of your folks are set up. And if there's anyone who's not been onboarded into our system and still needs to get contracted, you can go ahead and get the ball rolling there without having to, call us or do really anything else right there. So in the whole, I would just say if you're the admin or principal of an agency, if you haven't checked out the agency management tab, I would definitely go ahead and familiarize yourself with that. There's a lot of great tools in there already, and we're always planning to add more useful resources there as well. So keep an eye out. We'll have more stuff like that coming in the not too distant future. And when that does get released, we'll of course be letting all the agents know. So next, I just wanted to talk about some general carrier updates, share some news that we see in the marketplace. Biggest thing that I really wanted to highlight is a new carrier that we have this year. I'm sure a lot of y'all have already heard about this, so if this is not new information, apologies. But really want to highlight this new carrier, WellPoint. They are brand new in the ACA space. They're going to be available in Florida and Texas and also Maryland. If you didn't know already, WellPoint is owned by Elevance, which is the same company that owns Anthem. So they should be very good, very competitive, and they also know what they're doing. But just a quick point on that I need to mention. Even though WellPoint is owned by Elevance and is affiliated with Anthem, they have asked that all client-facing marketing not mention Elevance or Anthem. They only want you to use the WellPoint name and the WellPoint logo. They want to build this out on their own namesake and not using Anthem or Elevance. So just keep that in mind. we know that it is using a lot of Anthem's infrastructure. You'll notice when you log into the portal, it's for the time being at least pretty much the same Anthem portal. But if you're doing any marketing to clients or anything like that, just make sure that you are sticking with WellPoint and not using the Anthem or Elevance name for that. But moving on from that, though, if you aren't with WellPoint, again, it's going to be very competitive, especially in Florida and Texas. It should be one of the lower cost plans in all the areas that it's going to be selling. I believe it was in Southeast Florida. It's going to be like the second or third lowest cost plan there. So we're really thinking that this is going to be a must-have if you're selling in those states. It's going to be really competitive, and it should help to kind of diversify some stuff in the states as well. And on top of that, too, O'Neill Marketing, we're one of only 4 or 5 FMOs who have the WellPoint contracting. So if you're not appointed with it, if you're selling in Florida or you're selling in Texas, go ahead and grab that appointment. Just to forewarn you, there is sometimes a slight appointment fee for them, but by our metrics, it is well worth the cost of the appointment. So go ahead and request that today if you haven't already. And here is just a little overview of the footprint in those states. So Florida, it's got most of the good areas down in South Florida. Texas, a little more sparse, but it does cover most of the populated areas there. So again, it's going to be very competitive. If you need this information, we also have it saved in the resources section of our carrier, or I'm sorry, of our agent portal, if you want to check this out in a little bit more detail. But again, going to be very competitive. If you don't have it, go ahead and grab that appointment as soon as you can. Then I also just wanted to touch on a pretty common question we've been getting a lot as well. I'm sure you guys all saw the announcements about Oscar's relationship with Hell Sherpa. So just kind of close the loop on that. We're about 5, 6 days out from open enrollment. No agreement's been reached. So seeming like you're not going to be able to enroll any clients in Oscar plans through Health Sherpa, at least for open enrollments. There is always a slight possibility that this will change. I can't guarantee that they'll stick it out for all of open enrollment. I think that they probably will. But that being said, if any changes do happen, we'll certainly make announcements to agents, and I'm sure Hell Sherpa and Oscar will as well. So if this changes, we'll certainly make sure that you know. But for the time being, just expect that if you are going to enroll a client in an Oscar plan, most likely what's going to happen is it will probably at best be a double redirect to either healthcare.gov or maybe to Oscar's portal, more likely to healthcare.gov, where you're going to have to finish up that plan selection and enrollment. Obviously, this will be a good bit more labor intensive than just finishing it in Health Sherpa, and still not really clear whether or not the app data will carry over or how much of it will carry over. So that's just something to keep in mind as you go into open enrollment and as you're looking at Oscar plans with clients. If you're going to enroll people in it, just familiarize yourself with what's going on there and maybe just have a plan for how you're going to deal with the time constraints that are going to be placed by that. And just on the last note on this too, even though Oscar and Hell Sherpa are having their issues over there, that's not really going to affect auto renewals. If you've got any clients in Oscar plan that are getting auto renewed to an Oscar plan, that's not going to change anything there. It's really just if you're going to submit Oscar business through Hell Sherpa that you're going to experience those kinds of delays and issues. So moving right on, wanted to also mention Georgia Access because that's been a pretty hot topic these days as well. I am sure you are all well aware of what's going on with the Georgia State-based exchange, so I won't dwell on it too much. But really, the main thing that I want to make sure that everybody in the world knows is that you are going to be able to do Georgia sales through Health Sherpa. They are the first state-based exchange to have some serious EDE integration. We're very excited about it. I hope that if this goes well, this will be something that other state-based exchanges take up and can integrate as well. But the main thing is that you just got to make sure that you're certified to sell in Georgia. If you're planning on doing new business or you want to retain the business you have in Georgia, you're going to have to make sure that you have that Georgia Access certification. I've got the link right in here if you want to go ahead and get started. There's a training guide link there as well. I can say from personal experience, it might vary from person to person, but I did not find the Georgia State Basic Exchange certification to be all that difficult. Really only took a few hours. So if you don't have it, there is still time. You can go ahead and get that certification now and get prepared. But that being said, if you were already certified, it's important to check to make sure if you have Georgia clients that your book of business has been migrated over to Georgia Access. We've been seeing some sporadic issues there, so I've been recommending that everybody just go ahead and double check that. So if you were appointed, or I'm sorry, if you were certified for Georgia Access prior to October 15th, then you should have had your Georgia Access portal automatically created on the 15th and had your clients automatically migrated over. If that did happen, you would have gotten an email from Georgia Access on the 15th that would have had a link for you to go and set up your Georgia Access portal account. You had to reply within 24 hours and use that link. So if you did get it and you didn't use the link, you will have to call in and get that set up. Not sure how that will affect your client migration, but you just have to check on that. And again, even if you did get it, I'd still recommend jump into the Georgia Access portal, look at there, see if clients have migrated over. And if not, just kind of keep that in mind because if your clients did not migrate over, you are going to need to manually migrate them once open enrollment starts. Georgia Access has told us that it's not going to be a client by client case where you go in there and do it for each client. They said that they would be able to do it in bulk, but they said they wouldn't have any more information until November 1st. That was as of late last week. So, going to be more news to come. But again, just double check on that, especially if you got a big block of business in Georgia. Just make sure it's all going over. And so it's still linked up with you for auto renewals and all that good stuff. And then again, too, just a reminder as well, if nothing else works, you can always actively renew those clients during open enrollment, and that will, as always, set you up as the agent of record for Georgia. The next, I just wanted to quickly touch on just some of the resources that Health Sherpa has made available for agents. I'm sure y'all are familiar with Health Sherpa. They're always doing anything they can to make agents' lives just a little bit easier. First and foremost, you guys already know window shopping should be coming. Might be today. If not today, it should be early next week. I believe they said it was going to be the 25th, but we'll see if that actually comes out today. But when that does come out, you can jump in, see 2025 plans, do some quotes before open enrollment. Should be available today or sometime within the next week. You'll be able to see all the plans. I always recommend it just to see what's on the market, especially if you have areas with a lot of clients. You can start to game plan that and maybe even start communicating with your clients about renewals so you're ready to go right on November 1st. The other thing that I really wanted to mention about some of the Health Sherpa resources is this report that they've said they're putting together for at-risk renewals. And I think this will be super useful as you start strategizing for how you're going to go about renewals. Because this report, when it's released, should have a list of some of the high-level items where clients who might be losing their subsidy, but I think also very importantly too, clients who are set to be auto-renewed into either a new plan or a new carrier. As I mentioned earlier, if you know their plan is not being continued, if you're planning to let them auto renew, you're really rolling the dice on it because you can't really ever determine where they're going to go in. So you don't know if they're going into a carrier that you're appointed with or they're going into a carrier that you're not appointed with. So as Mike said just a second ago, it's always better to do active renewals as much as possible. But if you need to maybe prioritize some over the other, hopefully this report will help to kind of point out those specific clients who are probably at more of a risk and that you'll want to really make sure that you actively renew during open enrollment. Don't believe this report is available yet, but they have said it should be soon. Again, we'll be keeping an eye on it and get it updated. From what we were told, it should be in the clients page and there will be a tab for at-risk renewals. Again, hopefully more information for this to come, but as of when I checked yesterday, that was still not available quite yet. And the other name of the game this time of year, and really for the past 6 months or so, has been compliance. I'm sure that you all have seen a lot of the updates coming from CMS and a lot of other stuff. So again, I won't really dwell on it too much, other than really just the biggest reminder of just make sure no matter what you are being as compliant as humanly possible. Got to make sure that you have both the consent to access their information as well as their eligibility review for each application. You guys already know this. Consent has to be gathered before searching the marketplace, and the eligibility review needs to be done after the application before you submit it. You can have recorded calls, electronic documents. They still have a lot of variations that you can use there as long as it hits all the criterias that CMS has mandated, and you can store it for up to 10 years and produce it upon request. You should be all good. Again, just make sure that you've got all that information and make sure you have it stored and not only that, frankly, but just make sure that you can access it. Sometimes, if carrier or CMS reaches out, they might not be giving you a whole lot of information about what they need for the compliance case. So you'll need to make sure that even something as simple as naming the file, something where you can go back and find it. That'll be very important so that you can respond to any compliance issues in a timely manner. Got some helpful resources down there as well. CMS model consent, their FAQs, some of the health Sherpa resources around consent too. If you guys want to check that out, I'd highly recommend looking at those resources. There's a lot of good stuff in there too. And then I just also really quickly, again, just wanted to touch on compliance cases. If you receive any sort of complaints or compliance issues from carriers, state DOIs, CMS, anything like that, please respond with the requested documentation as soon as possible. The more you delay, the more risk that puts on appointments, licenses, commissions, all that good stuff. If you're replying in a timely manner and providing everything that they need, should be in a pretty good spot. And then as well, just make sure to keep an eye out too for any emails from compliance@o'neillmarketing.net. We've been monitoring a lot of compliance submissions, especially from carriers, and they've been escalating anything to us, especially if they've gone maybe 2 to 3 rounds without being able to get in touch with the agent. They'll usually escalate that to us. So if our compliance team is reaching out, that typically means that it's been at least escalated in some way, shape, or form. And if you need any help or you have any questions about it, you can also reach out to compliance@o'neillmarketing.net and we'll see if you can help you out. But again, just keep an eye out for all those compliant cases and for anything from our compliance team. Keep responding, and you should be good. Right. And then the last thing that I wanted to touch on this morning is just going to be about the AOR locks, especially important as we're going into open enrollment. Mike talked a little bit about it, so might be retreading some of the old ground. But as you all know, on July 19th, CMS instituted their marketplace wide AOR lock so that if the consumer has another application for the same plan year that's under a different AOR, you're going to have to do that three-way call with CMS in order to change the agent of record. You won't be able to change the agent of record by creating a new application, by changing income levels, changing plans, all that stuff. Really, the rule of thumb, if there's another existing application for the year, and you're not the agent of record on that application, you're going to have to do either the three-way call or now that health or resume link in order to switch it over. We've seen some people try to submit brand new applications or do some of the other stuff. Everything we've seen points to the fact that that is just not going to work anymore. They've really locked it down. So just get in the habit of doing the resume link or the three-way call whenever you see that other application for the year. But then on the carrier side, one of the small upsides is that most of the carriers have removed their own internal locks and they're just following CMS's lead on this. So if nothing else, it means at the very least you don't have to navigate 25 different AOR lock rules from each carrier. For the most part, they're all dropping their own internal rules and they're just following what CMS says in that 834 file that they send to the carriers. So just keep that in mind as you're doing, changes in enrollments during open enrollment. Then, of course, we have the Health Sherpa consumer resume link. A little bit of grace here. When I made this webinar 2 days ago, the resume link was not live yet, and we weren't positive if it would be up before November 1st. So just change all this future tense into present. But this is a link You've all seen it. You saw the email yesterday. You can send that resume link to a client, and that will fully take the place of a three-way call with CMS. The client will just open that link up. Just a heads up, they will have to do some ID verification. So, like one of the Experian, who did your car loan kind of quizzes. They will have to enter some of their own personal information from ID verification. That part is going to look a whole lot like what you do when you EDE sync your Health Sherpa accounts. And then the last thing too, though, is before they fill out the last little bits of the application, they are going to have to either log into or create a Health Sherpa account before they do it. If they already know that they have one, then that's great. They can log right in. If they don't, would recommend that they just use the email on their app and create a new account. If it says an account already creates, as with agents, they can just add a plus sign after the bulk of the email address before the little at sign, and that should be fine. And then once they're in, they'll click through essentially just the last handful of pages of the application. They'll do the attestations, and then they'll go ahead and submit it. And then that will, again, take the place of that three-way call with CMS. So that should be very useful to a lot of people. Again, if you have clients that are maybe not super tech savvy, perhaps this might not actually be the best method for them if they're going to have trouble logging in or doing this on their phone or whatever it is. Perhaps the three-way call will still be the way to go. It'll just kind of be up to agents to determine for each client what the best method is going to be. And if you think it's going to be more consistent to do the three-way calls, that will always be an option. But if you're working with clients who are a little bit more tech savvy, then hopefully that will make things a little bit faster for you. And then any AOR change, again, during open enrollment, that's going to require a three-way call or a resume link. And that also applies even if you're just changing it within your agency. So if you need to move AORs away from one agent to another, that is going to require either a three-way call or a resume link. So just keep that in mind. And that would be kind of another thing you'd have to strategize when you're looking at renewals. So you'll need to actively renew anyone who you're going to need to switch the AOR for. And then the other thing to just keep in mind too, if a client already has a 2025 application created, that AOR is more or less going to be locked, and you'll still need to take the steps to change it. And this will be even the case if you're the first to submit it. We're still, maybe going to learn a little bit more about how this works as we get into it, but there is some indication that they're going to create 2025 apps for auto renewals at the start of November. And then if that's the case, the AOR is most likely still going to be locked, and you're still going to have to do, some sort of three-way call. So it won't necessarily always be, first in on November 1st gets the AOR lock without having to do any of that song and dance. You still might have to do all of that even if you're the first to submit an application. So just keep it in mind. And I would say for the most part, just be prepared to do that unless you're already the agent of record. And again, as you already know, if you see that invalid action error, you're not able to make changes at this time, that's going to be because the AOR is locked and you're going to need to change it. But HealthSherp has now made it so that at that screen, you'll be able to either email that resume link or copy it, text it to people. And the other nice thing too is that resume link does not expire as far as we can tell. So if you need to send it to them and then they need to get in front of a computer or pick it up at another time, that is an option. Of course, as you all know, the longer you get away from that initial conversation, the less likely it is that you're going to have a follow through. But if push comes to shove, that is an option once you get to that screen. Or if that's not going to work, just go ahead, save the marketplace number, hop on that three-way call with them, and then get it changed over right then and there, and you should be all set. So that's going to bring me to the end of the presentation section that I had. Just as always, I've got our support numbers and emails up here on the screen. Always feel free to reach out. That's our general support hotline. You can also email our support at o'neillmarketing.net. And then if you have any contracting questions as well, please go ahead and just shoot them out to contracting at o'neillmarketing.net, and they'll be able to get back to you with some support there and can help you make sure everything is set up. If you know your agent or agency consultant as well, they're also here and more than happy to help, and you can certainly call them directly and they'll be able to assist you as well. So again, really appreciate all of y'all's time this morning. Thank you so much for coming out and joining us.
Wow, William, thank you so much, man. What a wealth of information that you gave out, laid out. I sure hope that we have some questions for William. That was a ton of information. So I'm going to pass this over to either Sarah or Michelle and lead us through, hopefully, a question or two for William.
Hey, Vince, thanks so much. We do have a couple questions. The first one that we'll start with is if the agent accidentally submits for a carrier that they are not appointed with, can they resubmit for a carrier that they are appointed with and still receive a commission?
Um, technically, yeah, you could do that. So if you accidentally put them in a Cigna plan, you're not appointed, you could get in touch with the client and change that back. But just a reminder, that will necessitate that you get another round of consent and that application, or that eligibility review. So you'll have to work with the client to get them to give you the permission to move them into another plan. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you put them in a 1-1 plan and then need to change it, if you can get with the client and get them enrolled in a different plan that you are on, then that should work. Another option might be as well, if there's a different agent that is appointed with it, you could also potentially have that agent get in touch with the client and change the agent of record over to themselves. As long as that's done before the plan goes into effect or before December 15th, you should be good. So there are options there, but again, just keep in mind that you'll probably have to do it in tandem with the client.
Awesome, thank you so much. We do have one other question. And if the member currently has an active plan for 2024 but no active plan for 2025, do the agents create a new application or do they work off of the 2024 application?
Um, it will depend. So if you're already the agent of record, then the renewal should be pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot of difference from past years. You'll either be able to go into their account and click the resume, or there's the resume link scattered everywhere else over Health Sherpa. And if you're already the agent of record, then you can just do it like that. I think the biggest twist is going to come when you're not the agent of record. And if that's the case, as always, you'll need to search the marketplace. And if you see that there's already a 2025 application, then that is typically a good indication that if you weren't the AOR for 2024, you're probably going to need to do either the three-way call or the resume link. It really just depends. Frankly, there's been sometimes a little bit mixed signals from that, but it does seem like since most people do the auto renewals, that they'll probably have that 2025 app at the very least set up and created. And so if you see that, then you'll probably need to do something like that and then go ahead and be the one to submit it. But pretty much at the end of the day, you'll know at the very least once you get to that screen with the invalid action error. If you see that, that's pretty much always your indication that you're going to need to take that extra step to make sure that you're the agent of record. I hope that answered the question.
Perfect. And now that you have completed your slides, we do have some more questions coming in. The next one is a verification. They just want to make sure that, or they're clarifying that the resume link is not yet ready for Health Sherpa.
No, so it actually is. So I made this presentation on Tuesday afternoon when it was not available,
Gotcha.
and I think I must have spoken it into existence because not 24 hours later we got the notification that it is live. I think I haven't really had enough time to really play around with it, but yeah, Health Service said it should be live. But then most importantly, though, it will be ready to go on November 1st.
Also, just
Perfect.
to add to that, everyone, Health Sherpa will be speaking this afternoon, so they'll be here.
All right. And then the next one that I have, for clarification, if a client that was enrolled for 2024 with a different agency calls to enroll in a different plan for 2025, the three-way call or a resume link will be required.
Yep, yeah, that is correct. Pretty much if they've already got an app on that's locked to another agent or another agency, then you're going to need to take that extra step to make sure that you become the agent of record moving forward.
Okay, fantastic. Um, the next one we have is regarding GA access. How will they see if their book of business was carried over to the GA access? If it was not, how do they manually do it?
So you should be able to log in and hopefully see some of your clients on there already. We've had agents tell us that, if everything got migrated over, they were able to see it. Per what Georgia Access had said, if your account was auto created on the 15th, unless you didn't activate it, it should have all carried over. But again, that's just kind of going off what Georgia Access said. Health Sherpa later might have a little bit more details because I know they've been working closely with Georgia to make sure that everything works. So they might have a little bit extra information, but as a rule of thumb, they've said that if they were able to automatically create your account, that should mean that they were able to essentially map out an FFM user to a Georgia Access certified agent. And as long as they can do that, they can link them up and they'll know anyone under this FFM user is going to now be under this Georgia Access account and should be all set. Last I spoke with Georgia Access, they had said that if it's not there, you will be able to move them over. But what I was told is that that wouldn't be available until probably November 1st, but it would be something that you could do en masse for all your clients at once. But unfortunately, when I talked to them, they weren't able to really give me much more information than that. So the actual mechanism of doing that is going to be to be determined. But just keep an eye on it. If you have the Georgia Access account, take a peek in there, see if something's looking amiss. And then if you do think that you're still missing some clients, I would plan to either look into how to move them over in bulk come November 1st, or barring any other solution, just go ahead and make plans to actively renew those clients. At the end of the day, if there's ever any uncertainty, the best way to make sure that you're going to maintain your agent of record status is just going to be to give the client a call, manually renew them, and make sure that you're the agent of record.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The next one is, will agents be able to see if there's an auto renewal plan in place for 2025 from a different agency so that they would be able to kind of have a heads up if they need to make a three-way call?
Under a different agency, that is kind of where it gets a little tricky because there's not huge swaths of data about what the auto mapped plans are. Health Sherpa is hopefully going to have a report, and that will probably apply to people in your book. But if it's not in your book of business, then it might be a little bit more difficult to tell what their auto renewed plan is. So if you're in doubt too, I would always just kind of look at, the larger data as far as, what carrier are they in? Is this carrier continuing in this state or in this county? Or is this plan being discontinued? If you know that the exact same plan that the person is in right now is being continued on to next year, then there's a pretty good chance that it's going to maintain the same. But, again, the example I used earlier, if they're on a UHC plan in Pinellas County, Florida, 100% that their plan is not going to be continuing on. And so then from there, it's sometimes kind of hard to determine what exact plan they'll be in. So really the best way to double check, unfortunately, once you get there, is just to go in and get into the application and see what it's mapped out to. But at that point, you're already in the app, you're already talking with them. So just go ahead and do the active renewal, and you can play more of a hand in making sure they're in the best plan.
Okay, we do have a question that's circling back over to the GA Access. Some agents have received the emails to create their own accounts, and others have not. When they have called GA Access, they were told the agency sets up those accounts, not the agent, and not providing them a link to create the account. I think that they're just looking for some clarification because they're a little bit confused and have not had much assistance from GA Access.
Yeah. I can say honestly at the higher level too that seems to be kind of the universal case across the board. That is interesting. The biggest thing that we heard was that if it wasn't auto-created, that it was most likely an issue with data matching from like your Circon account to Georgia Access. But that might be different if your account is set up under an agency, then it might be something where that agency has to send you a delegation link. I know that's something that some of the other state-based exchanges will do. But unfortunately, I have only really had hands-on experience doing it with non-agency accounts. Most people are set up kind of independently. So that might be the case, but again, unfortunately, right now it's kind of hard to tell. Georgia Access has not been super proactive with getting out all that information. So we'll have to look into that, and we'll double check. If we find some more information, we'll definitely make sure that we let you know. But if you don't have a Georgia Access portal and they're telling you that you need to get linked up with the agency to do it, then go ahead and talk to whoever the admin of the agency is in Georgia Access. See if they can go ahead and just help you get that set up. Worst case scenario, hopefully you can get your account all set up and then just move them over or actively renew them. Push comes to shove, just make sure you've got that Georgia Access login so that you can enroll those consumers.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The next question that I have here is, when sending the Health Sherpa link, do the agents still need to read the statements, or will they agree to the statements on the link?
That is a very good question. And frankly, I'll kind of defer to Health Sherpa on that.
Okay.
I've been recommending, honestly, that everybody still go ahead and get both the consumer and the eligibility review, which would include those attestations. I still recommend go ahead and get those so that you have your own versions of that on file. But we'll see. I don't know if Health Sherpa is planning on maintaining records of the data. From when the clients complete that resume link and do those attestations. I would say, to be extra safe, maybe get your own. But if Health Sherpa is recording all that and that will count for the attestations, then then that might change the name.
All right, perfect. I think that kind of wraps up all the questions that we have for you. I will pass it back over to Vince.
Awesome, Sarah. Thank you so much, Michelle and Sarah. And of course, William, thank you again for being with us today. What great stuff you provided, and thanks for the extra Q&A here at the end. That was just excellent. Hope everyone got a ton out of that. I know I did. And just again, very thankful for you and to the whole O'Neill marketing team.